No major news today, so let's get straight into the data and the charts. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and hit the bell to help out the channel. And let's get started. Fear and greed did not move very much today. Previous close was 75. We did get back up to 78, so that was a slight step up. You can see markets did tick a little bit higher on the day. Strength, no changes here. It's been flat for a bit now. Breadth, slowly trending up a little bit, but nothing convincing. Put call ratio has not changed in a while. Volatility still hovering right at that SMA. We'll look at that on the charts, and then no changes here to bonds either. Moving over to seasonality, you can see here on the 27th, we were expected to get a little bit of a step up, which we ended up getting. Not as dramatic as what the charts show. This shows about 0.5%. And then you can see into the end of the month is expected to be a decline. And then looking at March, if we follow through with the election year data, we do have a pretty significant amount of downside potential into the middle of March. So keep that in mind. Right now we are kind of hovering, which is in line with expectations. So it stands to reason that we could get a pretty significant dip into mid-March. Moving over to the economic data here, you can see core durable goods orders missed by a lot. So we are still seeing weakness in the economy. Core durables 0.3 to the downside. Headline here, 6% to the downside. Much weaker than expectations. And you can see consumer confidence also lower than expectations. And all these previous reads were also revised down. So pretty significantly weaker on the economic data here versus expectations. And then looking at tomorrow, we have GDP at 830. Could be a pretty big impact, especially if it's as weak as we're seeing the economic data. And then going into the Thursday session, if you hold anything into the close, you're going to be affected by PCE. Based on the two previous reads for CPI and PPI, I do expect PCE to come in quite hot, and I do expect that to be bearish for markets. Moving over to max pain, you can see we finished very little changed, up at 506.98. In terms of options, 500 still a very strong number, which would fit with the potential fall into that PCE data. So just keep that in mind. This is for the Friday close, which would give you about 1.5% of potential downside there. So still looking at that. 508 is our current upside resistance. Total options 1.3 million. Put call ratio continues to dwindle there, which is quite interesting. That is telling me that the upside potential in markets is quite weak, and puts are coming out of the market, potentially signaling that it's okay for markets to move lower. So overall, this continues to be bearish on this chart. Moving over to the chart, starting off with the S&Ps, you can see we had a dip into the mid-session, rallied into the second half of the trading day, and then you can see we ended up finishing very slightly bullish, 0.19%. Momentum on the daily chart, basically zero. RSI basically flat, right on top of the SMA, giving no clear direction. And you can see it is falling a little bit after hours as well. This is starting to look like a bit of a flag setup. You can see some lower lows and lower highs materializing, waiting to see if we get some kind of break higher to resistance. You got trend resistance up around 512 for tomorrow. But right now we're just kind of hovering in this area. We've been here for 4 days in a row with no major movement. Moving over to the NASDAQ, very similar thesis here. You can see basically flat, continues to find resistance at 438. Touched it multiple times today, touched it multiple times yesterday, and continue to close below it, selling off a little bit after hours. Again, the day was very slightly positive, 0.24 to the upside, momentum basically flat, RSI right at the SMA. So same thesis, 4 days in a row at this level. It's also worth noting that we have not gotten above this high here from 12 February. If we zoom out, you can see those peaks here right in that same range at 439, so just $1 higher than my level. It's also worth noting here, if we look, we did get a slightly lower low on this wick low, and then that very quickly rejected back into the middle of the range. So nothing super interesting on the NASDAQ. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow, it seems like the Russell is in a really bullish move here. So the Russell finding some strength, 1.42% to the upside. Let's look at the Dow here on the daily. Similar to everything else, but a little bit weaker, honestly. So Russell outperforming markets right now, momentum bullish, RSI bullish. Looks like we're about to break above my next level at 204.68. Next resistance would be 206.50. And that would break this wick high here from mid-December. This continues to look very strong. I've been bullish here on the Russell for a while, and it seems like it's going to go higher. It is down a little bit after hours, which I thought was interesting. And I also was pretty surprised that the weak economic data did not affect the Russell at all. You can see went straight up in the pre-market, continued a little bit higher during the trading session, got above the trend, next resistance just $1 or so higher. And then looking at the Dow, it's been falling a little bit more. Similar structure, but lower prices here today. Momentum slightly bearish. RSI breaking below the SMA. Got the 9 EMA sitting at 388.07, right ahead of my level here at 387.77. So still sitting on this as long as it continues to hold that level. If that breaks, I think there's a decent amount of downside potential to 382.20. Moving over to the MAG7, slight bullish day, 0.14, makes sense. These 7 stocks continue to drive markets, and sure enough, they are here as well. We're right at resistance, continue to struggle at that level. We've tried to get above it the last 3 days in a row. We tested it again here today. Momentum stepped down, RSI stepping down, so that's not a great indicator. 21 EMA sitting at 323.29, which would give you about $15 or so of downside potential to that level. So pretty bearish if we start to see a bigger breakdown, similar to what we had here. Pulled back to the 21, ended up bouncing. Let's look at that here on the hourly chart, see if we can find any different structure. Nothing really, just very slowly declining below that trend line. Let's go to the weekly chart here for just a moment, try to give some more context. You can see that rising wedge. We're at resistance. Last time we hit it, we had several weeks of downside potential to that lower trend. Currently, the trend is sitting right at that resistance at my support level at 308.72. So that would be a pretty bearish move from current levels. You got the 21 EMA on the weekly chart sitting all the way down at 285. You can see last time we had such a peak, we did end up pulling back to that trend line. So pretty interesting there. And then on the weekly chart, currently, obviously the week is not closed, but right now it is a step down in momentum. And on this previous run, you can see we did get a step down, go a little bit higher to resistance, and then we got that follow through. So just an early indicator that we could be finding some weakness here on the MAG7. Moving over to Apple and Tesla, you have Apple here fighting for its life at this support area. Once again, tested 179.79. That is a second test going back here to February, but really we're testing the same area that we hit here at the beginning of January, mid-January, end of January, and then here mid-February, we're testing it once again. 5 tests of this zone, continues to hold that area. It was a step up, 0.82 on the day, got back above 182.37, testing some resistances, but still below all the EMAs and SMAs, not a great indicator. Let's look at this on the hourly chart, see what happened. Really strong candle after touching that key support level, so definitely an important level, 179.96. Touched it, strong rejection, closed on the high of the candle, and then a massive candle. Basically all the gains for the day on that candle. So pretty interesting. Continues to find some support in this area. If it gets back into this zone, might be interesting to watch as an opportunity. And then looking at Tesla, we did get a step higher, 0.17, and it really tried to break out. We did get above these previous highs just for a moment. Let's look at this here on the 4-hour chart. You can see previous high, threw a wick through those highs and then immediately pulled back to support. So pretty interesting, still holding above the 9 EMA and 21 EMAs here on the 4-hour chart, but momentum is starting to fade. Still looking at 197.75 as that support. And so far it is holding that level after testing the 144 EMA here on the 4-hour chart. So continuing to look at this as a bullish position at 197.75. If that breaks, then I would be out of that trade if I was in it. Moving over to Microsoft and NVDA, these were both down slightly on the day, 0.01 and 0.49. Nothing crazy here in terms of structure, however. We've had 3 days in a row of bearishness. We're below the 21 EMA, but still holding just barely above that 9 EMA. So consolidation, your lows for the consolidation are 397.37, and then your highs up here, we did top out on this most recent move at 415.50, and then this most recent actual high here for 2070. So back below the trend, finding some support here. Next level for me to the downside is 394.22, and then NVIDIA, very small move to the downside, still in the same range for 4 days in a row. Nothing convincing. Momentum slightly bullish, RSI slightly bearish, so mixed signals, trend obviously still bullish. Moving over to staples and discretionaries, we did get a slight bullish move on both of these. Let's go ahead and put this on the daily chart. You can see 0.01 on staples, discretionaries 0.33. Staples hit the trend, found some support, ended up bullish on the day. So in terms of structure, still in it, just one bearish day yesterday, and then holding that same trend, looking for 75.40, and then discretionaries, it is worth noting that we did finally close above this high here from December. So that is a bullish indicator. Let's go ahead and zoom out on this one. So this is a most recent high above the high here from December and well above the highs here from July. 185.36 is my resistance, and then 189.39 above if that breaks. Keep in mind, this is not anywhere near all-time highs for discretionaries. Obviously, Tesla has been a laggard here for markets, so that's not helping discretionaries. The peak is all the way up at 215. I don't necessarily think we're going to go that high, but look how aggressive of a move that was. Right now, it does seem like 185.36 is in range, and then maybe even 189.39. Moving over to industrials and utilities. Industrials were up 0.15%, still at that resistance line. Tested that 2 days, and then we didn't quite get there today, so that's a little bit bearish. Momentum rolling over. RSI still in overbought conditions, but looks like it's set to roll over in my opinion. And then moving over to utilities, we were quite weak yesterday, which was surprising, but you can see we hit that SMA on the RSI, slight step down on momentum, and then here today, strong day, 1.89%. Continuing to see a rotation into safer stocks. Well above that 21 EMA, finding some resistance at the 144 at 61.96. 61.43 is my level, but I do like this here, at least to 62.59, if not back up to that 64.20 area. Moving over to breadth, you can see 20-day average did continue to hold this trend. We're still above all the EMAs and SMAs, pushing to that 86.50 area. And then looking at 50-day breadth, very slight step up back to that 62.25 level. Nothing convincing. We've been in this range for a while now, going back almost to the beginning of February in the same range. So slight trend to the upside on 20-day, 50-day, basically flat. Moving over to yields, we did get a step down on the 2-year and a rally on the 10-year. So finally seeing a little bit more movement back towards that reversion. The 2-year had kind of been running away with it. 10-year flat for a couple of days. So that was pretty interesting, but momentum starting to fade here on the 2-year, finding resistance at that 200 SMA, currently sitting at 4.74. And you can see we're down a little bit on tomorrow's candle. We'll see how that one plays out. 10-year still holding in this range, trying to get above that 144 at 4.31, and then resistance here 4.35. You really want to see it get back into this range and start to push. Let's go ahead and extend this out. Your resistance for tomorrow would be up around that 4.4 area. And if this continues to rally, that's going to be quite bearish for markets. But right now, we're definitely in consolidation at resistance. Moving over to the dollar here on the hourly and the daily, you can see we got a wick low. We tested the level. It ended up holding. So that was the move. We tested it actually at 2 o'clock in the morning. So hit it early there, almost tested it again on the 6 o'clock candle. Didn't quite get there. Ended up holding that 200 SMA once again, so that is the level to hold here on the daily chart at 103.73. Momentum bearish, RSI still bearish, but holding at an area of support. Moving over to bonds, JNK doing absolutely nothing, the same thing it's been doing here since mid-December. And then looking at TLT, pretty interesting actually. We hit the trend line, we talked about that yesterday, broke down from there in the mid-session and then sold off more here today. Makes sense with the 10-year going higher. Didn't break the level though at 92.82. It is just barely below that 9 EMA as well at 92.99, so that's not super convincing. Momentum basically zero, RSI selling off to that SMA. Really needs to hold that SMA if we're going to see a bounce. This could be just a quick higher low and then a push back up. But like I said, I think the 10-year is going higher, so that would be bearish here on TLT. Moving over to volatility, move index selling off quite a lot, but higher than yesterday's close, so kind of consolidative. Still holding above the 21, but below all the others here. And then looking at the VIX, you can see moved lower, still holding that 55 EMA at 13.38. Right at that trend support as well, but momentum bearish, RSI bearish. I would expect this to break down here, down to that 12.75 area. It is at support, but this has been quite weak for 3 days in a row, so we'll see what happens. If it's going to hold, it's going to do it now, but realistically, it looks more like it's going to break down to 12.75 or potentially even 12.41. Moving over to my accounts, I made a little bit of money on the day, so you like to see it. Looking at the different positions here, you can see IWM. I decided to sell a 204 for tomorrow at 86 cents. I'm going to start playing this on daily and 2-day options on the IWM as it does look quite bullish and I want to capitalize on that. So give myself the most opportunity for upside, at least in the short term. So that is expiring tomorrow for 86 cents, trying to collect a little bit of money there. And then looking at the Qs, very little changes to my position. I sold a 437 for tomorrow, which is in a slight loser, but that was when the stock was at 60 cents. You can see it's back down to 30 cents, so it's down a little bit. I didn't want to get super bullish as that 438 area continues to be resistance, so $1.61 credit potential. And then I did end up selling one put for tomorrow at 436 for 72 cents. We'll see how that one plays out, and then still holding the strangle, no changes there. And then TQQs, no changes here either, continuing to hold that 55 call as the Qs continue to find resistance, and then that 58 put, almost at 50% profit there already. We'll see how much longer I hold that. If markets start to look more choppy tomorrow, I'll definitely take those off, but right now everything is still in a bullish position. Let me know down in the comment section what you think of markets and this most recent consolidation. Is it just hesitation before a dip, people exiting their larger positions, or are we set to break higher and this is just a short-term pause? Definitely like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video, and make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.